Brennan Lee Mulligan is a well-known game master, particularly for his work on Dimension 20, Critical Role's Exandria Unlimited, the Worlds Beyond Number podcast, and oodles of other random stuff. Like many other hotshots in the TTRPG scene, he was first mired in obscurity, and then all of a sudden he was absolutely everywhere. Here are 10 lessons that aspiring DMs and GMs can learn from him. Number 1. Lifelike characters. Brennan is a master at bringing NPCs to life with vivid personalities and distinctive voices. Sometimes in the first episode of a new D20 show, I'm completely overwhelmed and amazed by how many unique NPCs he can throw at a group of players. Have you seen A Crown of Candy? The cast is massive, but not all that difficult to track because he makes everyone seem like a fully realized character. Even when the conversations between NPCs in the party last for only 2 sentences, you can almost always guarantee that something memorable will happen within those 2 sentences. The lesson here is, invest time in creating standout NPCs to enrich your game world. Devote time to accents, mannerisms, and conversational topics for your NPCs. And most importantly, give every single one of them a desire. Their wants and needs are what make NPCs feel real. And if you have no idea how to make interesting NPCs, just steal from real people. Go ahead and make an NPC based on Chris Pine or Chris Pratt or Chris Evans, or even non-Chris's like Margot Robbie or Zoe Saldana or, Justin Timberlake. Who cares if it's a little bit immersion breaking? Maybe the players will figure it out, or maybe it's just a tiny joke for your own amusement. I include a very obvious Sean Connery type in every campaign. Why? Because I think it's fun, and the players definitely remember that NPC. 2. Improvisation skills. Brennan is known for his quick thinking and ability to adapt to unexpected player choices. It's utter pandemonium and so thrilling to watch. He has an unbeatable advantage here because he comes from the Upright Citizens Brigade improv world. But that doesn't mean you need to move to Chicago or LA and join a popular improv troupe to be good at it. I'm certainly not a top-shelf improviser, but I learned how to yes and playing freeze tag as a theater kid in high school. The main thing to know is that it's all about building on what's already been established. It's about listening to your scene partner or partners and saying yes. It's about embracing chaos and never expecting a certain outcome. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. The fun is not knowing what comes next. 3. Comedic timing. In my opinion, Brennan's greatest strength is the level of absolute silliness he injects into his games. He doesn't get all the credit though. His players are quite often college humor alums or people from the comedy world. But BLM has a great sense of tone and pacing, and knowing when to move things from a serious mood to a lighter one, and how to use comedy to highlight emotions. If you remember this from Calamity, talent to wingspan, those multiple goofy sequences throughout between Travis Willingham's character and his NPC son Kier serve to establish the bond between a parent and child, and the humor pulls you in. With Brennan, I think you show up for the funny, then he manages to tug on your heartstrings when you're not looking. How can this help you? I've said this before, but don't be afraid to be zany. It's one of the best gifts you can give to your table. When people are laughing, they're paying attention, 100%. Then, when you've got their attention, that's when you shift gears and turn on the fire hose of drama. 4. Emphasis on player agency. Brennan encourages players to take lead in shaping the story, ensuring their choices have a significant impact. It's all about the collaboration. If you've seen Fantasy High, Unsleeping City, Mentopolis, or any of the Dimension 20 shows he runs, he always starts off the first session introducing the characters one at a time or in pairs, and it usually takes the bulk of the episode. But he doesn't just have them describe themselves. He gives each character a scene with an NPC they can play off of. This is important. Characters reveal themselves by the choices they make, and they make choices when given something to react to like an NPC. The lesson here? Give players the freedom to make meaningful decisions and influence the plot. Give players agency by offering them buttons in the world to push and levers to pull, and make the results of those interactions have meaning. 5. The rule of cool. He often prioritizes the rule of cool, allowing players to attempt exciting and cinematic actions even if they stretch the rules. Using the same example from before of Travis Willingham's rogue Sarret from Calamity, he and his son Kier were talking using sending stones. Rules as written, they should have only been able to send one message back and forth per day using those magic items. But think of how much the story would have suffered if that rule had been adhered to. Sure, they could have possibly communicated some other way, like via a telepathy spell, but what is the important thing here? The narrative. Compare this to someone like Matt Mercer, who most likely would not let you use a sending stone more than once per day. They're both excellent storytellers. They both run great tables, but BLM is much more likely to give you advantage on a roll simply for the fact that he wants you to succeed, and he will flat out say so. I've seen him do it. So should you toss out your player's handbook and just do whatever you feel like? Not necessarily. But with experience comes the ability to know when the rules will interfere with telling the best story possible at the table. Sometimes coloring within the lines is the best way to achieve a fun and fair challenge. Sometimes you just need to splatter paint across the canvas. 6. Engaging descriptions. Fire. Brennan's vivid descriptions make the game world come alive, and he often does so with a lot less word count than Matt Mercer, someone he's being constantly compared to. And I like the fact that Brennan says a lot. It makes me feel less self-conscious when I do it. Brennan's descriptions are less about establishing the visuals of a scene and more about highlighting a mood. Brennan has what I would consider that Elmore Leonard magic. Hold on, let me explain. Elmore Leonard said he preferred to let his characters reveal themselves through their dialogue. He often gave very little actual physical description. Hemingway was also famous for being sparse in his descriptions. Brennan is the same way. In Unsleeping City, instead of going into lurid detail describing New York, he would often insert little throwaway NPCs into those scenes to offer up random lines of dialogue, little slice-of-life bits to provide color. Do you ever stand idly at the coffee shop waiting for your order and just open up your ears and take in bits of conversation around you? At your table, remind yourself of the 5 senses. When setting the scene for your group, see how many you can engage. Sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. Not everyone every time, but sometimes telling your players that they smell roses is more effective than telling them that they see roses. 7. Balance and challenge. Even with everything I said praising Brennan's reckless use of the rule of cool, the man designs some of the hardest encounters I've ever seen. And while he does sometimes toss the rules out the window, he quite often makes his players earn their successes. Remember the corn cutie encounter in Fantasy High? They were level 1, and that was an unbelievably punishing combat. I've seen him set DCs of 25 for ability checks for 3rd level characters. Insane. But the thing is, when the DC is that high and his players hit the number, they go nuts. They cheer and shake their fists. In tabletop role-playing games, the players want to feel awesome, but it's also often better if they earn it instead of having it handed to them. Number 8. Putting the PCs first. It's the GM's job to make the players feel like their characters are cool and powerful. D&D is about dope characters doing dope shit. Brennan might be the best in the world at this. In the first episode of Unsleeping City, he introduces Lou Wilson's character, who is a city cleric. Brennan goes out of his way to describe how the city of New York loves his PC, Kingston Brown. This is his city. He doesn't have to pay for the bus. The neighbors on their stoops adore him. He heals people as he traverses the streets. All the while, the giddy smile on Lou's face tells you everything you need to know about how skilled BLM is at making his players feel cool. In conclusion, you are not Brennan Lee Mulligan, but you can adapt these lessons to your own style and the preferences of your players. Brennan's unique approach to storytelling can serve as a source of inspiration for your own game mastering journey. And if you haven't seen him as Citizen Dr. Abraham Mahurenblur on Roll20's D&D Chaos streams, you have to check those out. Seriously, I laughed so much I actually hurt, and that's a true story. Anyway, this is GM Jim. Now go out there and embrace chaos like Brennan. You won't regret it.